This podcast is brought to you by Contessa Digital.
What's the best gift you've ever received? This is the time of year where people are spending money on buying gifts for people that they love. And I was thinking about this, and I thought of one of my favorite stories to tell about relationships and about how arguably the best gift I've ever received from a man cost him less than $2 and maybe 15 minutes of his time. So, welcome to Confidently Cherished. If this is your first time listening, my name is Keshia Rice, and I am a dating coach for ambitious women of faith. And back to this gift story. So, I was in college at the time, and I was dating this guy, and while we were dating, I told him about how when I was a kid, my parents, particularly my mom, used to buy me ice cream sandwiches, and how this was a big treat for me because especially when I was really small, my parents didn't have a lot of money, and how sometimes my mom would even come to school and have lunch with me and a friend, and she'd also make sure that we got ice cream sandwiches. So I just told the story. I didn't really think anything of it other than it being a cute story from my childhood, until a few months after this. It was exam time at school, and also my birthday is in December. So while I was in college, our fall exams before the fall winter break normally happened around the time of my birthday. So I should have been celebrating turning a year older, but I was stressed out because I was worried about passing my classes, which, looking back, 18-year-old me was ridiculous because I was like an all-A student. Of course I was going to pass, but I was so stressed out about these exams, and I was just constantly feeling anxious and upset for nothing. So I remember one day in particular talking to my boyfriend at the time about how stressed I was. And I had called him honestly because I wanted to dump on him and vent. Back then I was young and dumb, so I didn't understand that you have to be careful about just dumping all of your emotions on someone. You have to make sure they have the capacity for it, and that you shouldn't treat people as if they're just a dumping ground. But at the time, that's what I had called him to do. And I remember being so upset because I talked to him for, all of 30 seconds when he just cut me off, and he was like, "Hey, I gotta go. I have some things to handle, and I'll talk to you later." So I get off the phone with him, and I am pissed, right? Nevertheless, I tell him that that's cool and that I will talk to him soon. And I was sitting in my dorm room just silently stewing when a few minutes later, I hear a knock on my door. It turns out it was that guy. And as soon as he heard that I was as upset as I was, he immediately went to the campus bookstore, got an ice cream sandwich, and brought it to me. And that is why it is one of my favorite gifts that I've ever received, because it wasn't about the ice cream sandwich itself. It was just being in a relationship in which I constantly felt seen and heard and considered, knowing that someone listened to the things that I said, including little offhand stories that, I probably told at the time just to fill conversation or just to fill up space in a moment of silence. But he listened to that story and took it seriously and knew that that was a way to help me relax and help me cheer up. So the reason why I'm now telling you this story is because I have seen a lot lately on social media. And yes, I know a lot of these episodes lately have come from things from TikTok that I would like to rant about. But my current rant is all of the posts about if he wanted to, he would. And to some extent, that is true. But I really think we need to reconsider and tweak this phrase a little bit. So the idea behind if he wanted to, he would, is that if you are in a relationship with a man who is doing the bare minimum, or in some cases less than the bare minimum, it's because he simply is not interested in you. And you should accept that and move on. You should just accept that he's just not that into you. And I kind of want to not necessarily throw that whole phrase away, but I would like you to consider if he wanted to, he'd work. Because I think that that is more accurate. So one of the things that I constantly tell my clients is that it's not unusual for men to multi-date or rotational date, whatever the trendy phrase we're going to use to call that nowadays, in which they may be pursuing more than one woman at a time, talking to more than one woman at a time. And I don't think that this is a crime. I honestly don't. In fact, I think that women should do the same, because oftentimes we get into this idea of dating is always marriage or bust. And if you're dating someone and it doesn't lead to marriage, it is a failed relationship. The truth is that dating is simply data collection. So you date someone to gather enough information about them to know whether or not this is something that should move forward, or this is something that should be cut off, that should end, maybe translate into, a friendship or a business relationship. But a romantic relationship is not how this thing is going to end or how it's going to work out. And the sooner you can do that, the quicker you can do that, the better your dating life will be. So to that end, going on dates with more than one man at a time, and I'm not telling you to, have a whole roster or team of guys out there, but if you're talking about, say, 2 or 3 guys, doing that, you are discerning quicker. You don't feel as attached to one person because you clearly see that you have other options. And it allows you to kind of discern and filter more quickly and, let people who are not aligned go in peace. And it's best for the man too, because you're not wasting your time. You're also not wasting his. So oftentimes when we have this conversation of if he wanted to, he would, it is correctly put in that context of, especially before I was married, I had a lot of male friends, and, I used to talk to them all the time about their relationships with women, and I would see it. I would see guys who a certain girl would call them or text them, and I would be hanging out with them. They would look at the phone, see that it was a certain girl who texted, and they put the phone right back down and go back to our conversation or go back to the video game they were playing or the movie we were watching, whatever. And there were other women who could send them a text message and, I would be practically kicked out of the apartment, or, they would cut, our lunch short. They would, practically run to get to that girl because they had that much interest. So it is true to some extent that, yes, if a man wanted to, he would. If he wants to spend time with you, if he wants to talk to you, if he wants to see you, he will do whatever is possible to make that happen. And if you're not seeing that sort of consistency in a man, That doesn't mean that he's bad. It doesn't mean that he's trash, but it is a pretty good sign that the two of you are not aligned. He's not feeling that connection and that chemistry. And you could stay in that situation if you wanted to, but why would you want to? You should want to be with someone who adores you, who cherishes you, who gives you the kind of consideration that they listen to everything you say and take notes and understand how an ice cream sandwich would completely, make your day and help you relieve some of your stress, right? So to some extent, again, I really do think that whole idea of if he wanted to, he would is definitely true. If a man is not giving you consistency, if he's not giving you consideration, he thinks about your feelings and the things that he does and how it's going to impact you. If he is not making an effort to deepen the connection that he has with you, then you should move on. But I want to talk about the other side of this, the reason why I'm saying if he wanted to, he'd work. Because oftentimes when I talk about this, there's always someone who has to bring up this idea of, well, what if he was never taught how to love as a child? What if he doesn't know what it means to be affectionate? What if he's just deeply hurt and he has trust issues? And this is why I say if he wanted to, he would work. Because the fact is, at the end of the day, we all have our stuff, right? We all have our issues. We all have our baggage. And being in a relationship, part of that being in a relationship is understanding that some of those things never go away. You will always have things that trigger you. You will always have behaviors and thought patterns that are a result of the way in which you grew up, that are a result of the way in which you were taught what love is and how to love. This is why therapy, counseling, seeing a coach, this is why these types of things are so important, because, therapists help you heal from your past traumas. They also help you develop coping skills in your day-to-day life. And coaches, also help you with those coping skills. They help you with recognizing these patterns. And they help you with, finding new ways of thought and changing that mindset and creating strategies to go forward in life in a way in which you can express healthy love to yourself and to other people as well, in the case of a dating coach, of course. So when I say if he wanted to, he'd work, there are men out there who will forever want mothers, not partners. So they're not going to put in the work on themselves to be emotionally independent, to have emotional intelligence, because that is a type of labor that they will always expect someone else to do. And there are also men out there who, no matter how many mirrors you hold up to them, they will not see what their issues are, or they will see those issues but not believe that they are issues. So, they get in relationships and it is not a matter of they're willing to learn how to communicate and adapt and behave in a way so that the woman that they're with feels safe and comfortable. They expect the woman to learn how to live around the uncomfortability. And if you are with a man who really loves you and respects you, then yes, he may have come from a childhood or some background. Maybe his childhood was great, but Then as an adult, he had a couple of dysfunctional relationships. So he may have come from a background in which he was traumatized, in which he dealt with abandonment or neglect. He may have had something in his past that causes him to have trust issues. The difference, though, is if you're with a man who truly wants you and also wants healthy love, wants that cherished partnership, he's going to put in the work to be the man for you that you need him to be. This means that this is someone who is going to be willing to, if he's not used to talking about his feelings, he's going to be willing to try to have those conversations with you and learn how to express himself in ways in which he's never expressed himself before. If he has been emotionally unavailable for a long period of time, he is going to work to make himself more emotionally available, to work on dealing with those feelings, not just with you, but also within himself. He may see a counselor or see a therapist or see a coach so that he can get that accountability and that strategy and that healing that he has not received, up until the point that he met you. If a man is really and truly committed to a loving, healthy relationship, he's going to find a way to get the healing that he needs. And I'm phrasing it that way because if we're going to be 100% truly, completely honest, women are just typically more likely to specifically see a therapist or specifically see a coach than men are. Men are not as likely to do that unless there's like a business incentive for it. Or in the case of coaching, I know so many men who see business coaches to improve their business, or who see personal trainers or some other type of fitness or nutritional coach. But getting them to see some sort of life or spiritual development coach, like, a dating coach like myself, that concept is like pulling teeth for them. At the same time, I have seen many men who go on spiritual growth journeys, and some of them will see a therapist, some of them will see a coach, but also some of them find male mentors who are in healthy relationships, and they start spending more time with that man and gaining wisdom from that man. And, that man is the one who teaches them to open up. I've seen men, funnily enough, get into situations where they're going to other men for things like advancing their business and advancing their careers. And in the process, they meet a man who has that healthy masculine balance, and they're encouraged to go on that journey to really work on themselves and improve themselves. But if you are with someone who is, again, truly committed to you and truly committed to being a better person so that at some point he can be a great husband, a great father, all those things, then he is somehow putting in the work. This is the problem with the idea of dating someone for their potential. Because potential only matters if that potential is actualized, if it's realized. So it's great if someone seems like they could be successful, seems like they are so smart, seems like they want to be in a relationship. But if you don't see them taking the steps they need to take to get there, then it's nothing but empty promises. It's nothing but a pretty piece of art to look at, but there may be no value to it. So if he wanted to, he would work. If he has his own baggage and his own demons that he's working out, then if he really cares about you, he's also not going to be pursuing a serious relationship with you while he's working those things out. Because he'll respect you enough to want you to be with the whole version of him, the healed version of him. So if you see a man who's constantly talking about working on himself, but he's also constantly trying to be in relationships, especially if he's constantly trying to get laid, then it's cap. This man, what he's saying is BS, and you need to take yourself out of that situation. So if he wanted to, you would see a man who is putting in the work to be a better person, just a better person in general, which will make him a better boyfriend, a better husband. And if he wanted to, he would clear the bare minimum standards. So he would clear those hurdles of showing you kindness, not being nice, because we don't do toxic positivity around here. We also don't do toxic nice guys who constantly have to tell you that they're nice, but then they find subtle ways to be a-holes. Like, we don't do those types of men around here. So if he wanted to, then he is going to work on being more emotionally intelligent. He's going to work on being vulnerable with you. He's going to work on improving his communication skills. He's going to work on showing you consideration, that he puts you first, that he is willing to, take time out of his busy schedule to spend time with you, that he's willing to explore the things that you like, even if they aren't things that he necessarily likes themselves. But he wants to get to know every aspect, every facet of who you are. And to be clear, he's doing those things whether or not he was skilled at it before he met you. So if he already had some of those communication skills and emotional intelligence in place, he'll get better at it as he's in a relationship with you. And if he didn't, you will see him actively make progress during the time that the two of you are friends, because he knows that he is not in a position to be in a relationship with anyone. So he would have a friendship with you first while he works on those issues. And if he wanted to, then yes, he's doing the bare minimum in the relationship of showing consideration, communicating properly, respecting your boundaries. And then beyond those bare minimums, he's not just being a decent human being. He is showing you that he is someone that you can be safe with. Someone who makes you feel seen and heard and listened to and appreciated. Because let's be real, it doesn't take a lot. Sometimes it takes $1.50 ice cream sandwich, right? It doesn't always have to be this big fancy gesture, but what it does have to be is something that shows true interest and commitment. So again, if he wanted to, he would work, because you're constantly working on yourself, right? I know you are, because this podcast is very much a self-help podcast. So if you didn't believe in self-development and working on yourself, you would not be listening to me. So if you can work on yourself, if you can be committed to your own growth, then shouldn't it be reasonable to expect that out of someone else, to do the same types of things that you're doing, to put in the same type of work that you're putting in? I don't think that's too much to ask. So, as always, I love talking to you. My podcast listeners are some of the smartest, most wonderful, most intelligent, most thoughtful women in the world. So I don't take that for granted. Hint, hint, while I appreciate the emails that I get sent saying that you enjoy listening to this, I would love to get a little love on social media or on the iTunes reviews so that other people can find this podcast as well. Shameless plug. Please review me or, take a screenshot of this episode, post it on TikTok, post it on Instagram. I'm at Keshia Rice on both. And, help me get the word out there, but also let me know what you think. Let me know what questions you have, what things you would like me to talk about on a future episode. And let me know what you think about this whole idea of if he wanted to, he would work. I can't wait to hear your responses. And again, thank you so much for listening. I love you so much. Bye.
Hey there. So you made it all the way to the end of the episode, which means I have two things to say. One, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And two, you like me. You really like me. So I would appreciate it if you would show that like by subscribing to this podcast so that more people can hear about it and enjoy it as much as you do. And if you want to know more about any of the links that I mentioned on this episode or any guests that I've had, be sure to go to KeshiaRice.com/links. That's KeshiaRice.com/links. I can't wait to talk to you again in the next episode. So see you then.